He couldn't resist. He had been filled with the joy of discovery back then, and he had slipped away, following the lure of an unspoken promise. The network of caves he discovered was honeycombed deep within the mountain. Inside, he met the most amazing wizard, personable, handsome, and willing to impart his vast knowledge to a young, eager apprentice. All he asked in return was secrecy. At the age of 12, Julian had thought it all an exciting game. Looking back, Julian questioned if he had wanted knowledge so much that he had deliberately ignored the warning signs. He had mastered many new powers, but there had come the day when the truth hit him in the face with all its stark ugliness. He had arrived early to the caves, and hearing screams, rushed inside to discover that his young, handsome friend was the most loathsome of all creatures, a true monster, a cold-blooded killer, a Carpathian who had yielded his soul and turned vampire. At 12, Julian did not have sufficient powers and skills to save the hapless victims as the vampire drained their blood completely, seeking not just sustenance, as a Carpathian would, but the subject's death. The memory was etched in Julian's mind for all time. The streaming blood, the unearthly screams, the horror. Then came the moment when the vampire's hand gripped him, the once admiring pupil, and dragged him close enough to smell his fetid breath, to hear his taunting laughter. Then the teeth, fangs now, were tearing into his body, painful and vulgar. But worse, Julian wasn't allowed death, as the vampire had given his other victims. He remembered the way the undead creature had slashed his own wrist and forced it to Julian's mouth, had brutally forced him to accept that tainted blood, to exchange blood with the most unholy of creatures, bringing him into his power, beginning the process that would make Julian his slave, that connected them for all time. The shame had not ended there. The vampire had immediately begun to use the boy even against his will, as his eyes and ears, to spy on those of his former race he now wished to destroy. He had the talent to eavesdrop through Julian on the prince, or the healer when the boy was near them. He had taunted Julian that he would use him to destroy his own brother Aidan, and Julian had known it was possible. He had felt the darkness spreading within him. At times had felt the vampire's eyes looking through his own. Several times Aidan had escaped by a mere hair's breadth from traps Julian later recognized he had inadvertently set himself, under the vampire's insidious compulsion. And so, many centuries ago, Julian had made a vow to lead a solitary life, to keep his people and his beloved twin safe from the vampire and himself. He had lived on the fringes of their society, gaining a Carpathian's true strength and knowledge until he was old enough to strike out on his own. His people's blood still beating strongly in him, he did his best to live his life honorably, did his best to fight the gathering darkness and the continual assaults the vampire made on him. He had evaded further blood exchanges with the undead, and had hunted and killed countless other vampires, but the one who had fashioned his life so brutally always eluded him. Julian was now taller and more muscular than many of his race, and while most had dark hair and eyes, he was like a Viking of old, with long, thick blonde hair he tied at the nape of his neck with a leather thong. His eyes were amber, and he often used their smoldering, mesmerizing fire to hypnotize his prey. Now, though, he gazed about the street, seeing nothing yet to account for his unease, and he moved forward like the predator he was, fluidly, muscles rippling beneath his sleek skin. When need be, he could be as still as the mountains and as relentlessly unyielding. He could be the rush of the wind, like flowing water. He had tremendous gifts, could speak in many tongues, but he was always alone. In his younger years, he had spent much time in Italy. More recently, he had lived in New Orleans, in the French Quarter, where his aura of mystery and darkness alarmed almost no one. But not long ago he had given up his home there, knowing he would never return. At long last, after this one remaining task, his duty and honor would be satisfied. He saw no reason to continue his existence. Julian